Good afternoon and welcome back to the Inside Teen Hour. It is Monday and it's 2 p.m. and it's time for us to talk about teen mental health issues. So Happy New Year to everybody out there. I think this is our first live show after the new year. So today in the studio I have actually a full studio today. We've got 4 people in here, 3 people in the studio and 2 on the phones. So today in the studio I invited the Wellness Collective, P.E.A.C.E, also called PWC, from Encino. It's a private practice with 3 ladies who are here, LMFTs, who are very dedicated to making sure that we can provide services to their African American community, in the community or in the local community there. And they're very passionate about that, but they're also very passionate about an approach which at Insight we sort of really believe in as well, and that's the idea that we need to include our community. The idea that it takes a village. When teenagers are struggling and families are struggling, it really takes a village to get these things turned around. And it can't just be one therapist or one counselor, but we need to get everybody involved. We need to get, of course, parents involved of the teens, but we also need to get outside experts. So it could be AA communities, it could be Al-Anon community, it could be Light of Hope here in Santa Clarita. But the idea of including a community when things get tough and when we get these things, when we have to turn these things around, is very important. So I think that was a very interesting thing for us to discuss today on the show. So thank you very much for joining the show today. I will also mention before we start that we have our CEO from Modesto and Merced, our Modesto and Merced location, Faith Chappelle. She's here in the studio too. Welcome, Faith.
Hi, everyone.
Great you could come. So Faith is also from the African, or also has a big passion of helping her African American community in Modesto and Merced, and making sure that the community knows that there's access to treatment up there. So, and I'm sorry, I think I forgot to introduce our 3 guests from the Wellness Collective. So in the studio today, we got Kiki.
Yes.
Welcome, Kiki.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Welcome. And we got Monifa.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Good. And then we got Makeda.
Makeda.
Oh, I did get it wrong. Sorry. Before the show, we were practicing a little bit, but Makeda, welcome to the show. I appreciate you're here.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Of course. So why don't we start talking a little bit about what brought you guys to this, to this situation where you started up your own private practice and is working with teens and adults in the private practice. Sort of maybe tell us a little bit about your passion for doing what you're doing.
I mean, for one, we're really excited to be here. This is something that I think is really important for people to understand, that mental health can be brought to us in different perspectives and different, in different vantage points, right? So we're used to seeing mental health like on some type of conference center. You have to go to a workshop, and this is such a interesting, innovative way to bring mental health to our listeners and to potential clients. So we really thank you and Faith for even creating the Insight Treatment Hour. PWC started, we're all friends. Mo and I we were in the same cohort in grad school, and Makeda and I, we've been friends since undergrad. We're sorority sisters. So it was kind of like, I knew that I wanted to go into private practice, but I knew I didn't want to do it alone.
She's kind of like our Professor X. She's
like it.
She came up with the brainchild and brought us into it.
Yeah.
But again, back to the idea of collective, right? That we want to be together. It needs to be community. It's much more fun if you go through things as a community, right? With your friends, whether it's building a company or whether it's,
Absolutely. So. And I knew I didn't know who it was going to be at the time. I just knew that I knew I wanted to do something with a large group of African American women and us serving our community. And so we started in 2019 is when we really started providing behavioral coaching, mental health coaching over the pandemic. And it kind of worked out because a lot of our clients, given the COVID, a lot of them were really wanting to be seen over through telehealth. And so it was kind of like this perfect divine inception of us starting. And then, the COVID happened and we felt like we were right there for our community to provide those online services. And then we've just continued to grow and find what our niche is and develop the PwC approach and this idea of, that communities must be able to thrive in order for individuals to heal, sort of thing. And like you said earlier, it takes a village. So that's kind of how we came to be, in a sense.
Yeah. And adding on to what Kiki's saying, there's such a stigma when it comes to African Americans or people of color and therapy, where it's not for us. We can't afford it. You don't tell your problems to people outside of the family or church. It only stays within there. So it's like part of our purpose is to remove that stigma, because it's people like us are more likely to get treatment from people that look like us. If they have that representation, they'll feel more comfortable. And then also having the village approach, which kind of goes back to church, where they're like, you can only do this in church. Because in church, it's still a village, but it's like it's a very, it's a very certain way of doing things. Whereas therapy is just another option. So to know that you have another option, like that's not the only way to go about doing things. So this can be in addition to.
Yeah, and that comes back to the whole idea of, hey, we need to utilize different things in our community, right? Church is one, therapy is another. Community meetings could be a third. Makes
and
sense.
that might be something that we add to our clients, and we'll get into this later in the show, but that might be something that we add to our clients' village, right? So as we're having them create a village, we might also encourage them to connect to church if we know that they're very connected to spirituality. So we aren't afraid of outside entities. We want clients to know that the more people, the merrier, actually, But yeah, we'll get into all that juicy stuff later.
That's good. But I know, Faith, maybe you can talk to that, but I know also up in your Modesto facility, you were very engaged with the car club in the beginning, sort of part of the community, right? That the cars is a big deal up in Modesto, and there's a lot of community surrounding these car clubs. Right, Faith?
Yeah, definitely. And one of the ladies said just being represented in the community so people know that we are here. We're also doing this really tough work. We're getting the therapy ourselves, and we're also reaching out to show them that there's lots of different ways that you can engage, and it can be going to a community meeting, hanging out at our facility, and just talking about tough issues. So it doesn't have to be one-to-one therapy and get so deep already, but let's just start to have the conversation and ask questions. So we try to make it in an environment where people feel comfortable and feel safe.
Yeah, it really is important to include all that. Good. Well, why don't we talk a little bit about PVC or PwC and sort of your philosophy behind it, and who do you treat? Is it primarily individuals? So, tell us a little bit about.
Let's let Maki get into it.
Good.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Makeda.
So the way that we work, each of us have our very specific approach and focus and way that we work with our clients. And one major concept of ours is that we collaborate and consult amongst each other regularly, and our clients are able to benefit from that. Additionally, the way that we discuss the importance of the village approach amongst our clients, we also utilize that model with how we run PwC. So our clients are able to benefit from our different perspectives. I'll go down the line and have all of us kind of talk about our different approaches, but I come from a holistic perspective, acknowledging, mind, body, spirit, in addition to traditional methods, and, utilizing mindfulness and breath work, tapping, sound healing, body scanning, and just centering on the four bodies of our health, of the physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental health. And primarily work with clients that are working through anxiety, depression, identity, and self-esteem, which is really all of us. So, but we all do. We all, collaborate with each other with our approach. And Monifa or Kiki, if you'd like to jump in with your approaches.
Yes. So I mainly deal with depression, anxiety, all those things that Maki said, because that's all of us, and that kind of goes into anything that you're treating.
Yeah.
Those are like the general issues. That's the umbrella. But my niche would say it'd be sexual health coaching. And I also deal with a lot of partner betrayal trauma, so infidelity, things like that, work a lot with couples, and sex addiction. So basically anything kind of falls under the sexual umbrella is my department. But once again, the way I'd like to think of it is sex is like the symptom. So if a couple is having an issue, usually it comes out through sex, but there's a way deeper issue that's like under the iceberg that we're not necessarily seeing, and that could be anxiety, stress, depression, and all those things. So it's kind of like working backwards. So dealing with the sexual issue to understand what's going on underneath it all. And that even goes for individuals also. If they're feeling awkward or not knowing how to, maneuver themselves around the opposite sex and stuff. Okay, that's the symptom. What's the thing that's driving that?
Yeah. I think that's very important, right, to point out that often teens, right, they act out in different ways. Some act out by smoking weed and getting high. Some act out by having relationships that are unhealthy. Some act out with acting out sexually. Some act out by, being depressed and suicidal ideation, self-harming.
And a lot of that is how they've been taught how to act out or how to express those emotions, right? And so we look at it as your community has informed these symptoms that we see. So in order for us to fix it, we have to understand how the community is expressing those symptoms in order for us to heal the individual.
Interesting.
Per se, right?
Smart. Yeah, that's right. See it as a community thing, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then for me, I focus primarily on grief and loss and traumatic loss. And so I know when we were prepping for the show, Maki had mentioned that one of her clients she was explaining to one of her clients like who we are, and they were like, "Oh, you guys are like the Avengers of therapy." And we kind of laughed at that, but when we thought about it, we were like, "Oh, I guess so," like we do see things like Maki said from a different perspective, but under that we all see it from this umbrella as how is this individual being influenced by their community, right? And so looking at some of the learned behaviors, helping clients understand what is a learned behavior from your community and what's actually an innate behavior, right? Something that we're actually born with, because sometimes clients can get the two confused, right? And sometimes they think that this is who I am and it can't be changed. And it's like, no, actually you learn this and you can actually unlearn this if it's not working for you. So I do focus on grief and loss within whether it be individuals or for couples as well. And like my colleagues, I do work with clients that have depression. Sometimes clients come see me for severe anxiety, borderline personality disorder, but primarily there's some type of underlying trauma to most of the clients that I see.
We spoke, or you mentioned quickly, that one of the maybe reasons for people in the African American community not to engaging in treatment straight away is because of the fear of, hey, I can't afford it, or Do you guys take insurance as payment, or you work on a sliding scale, or?
Yeah, we do offer sliding scale to our clients. We don't currently accept insurance, but we're able to work with our clients on what, making mental health accessible. That's a focus of ours for sure.
Great. Yeah. And you primarily see your clients on an individual basis, or do you also do some group work in the practice?
Yeah. So we do have we have a group that we're looking for, that we're accepting registration for. It's our motherhood therapy support group for new mothers, foster mothers, adoptive mothers.
If you're a mother.
Yes. If you are a mother figure, this group is for you. Godmothers. But we really saw a need, through COVID. And that group is actually led by our colleague, Dr. LaVonda Mitkins. And she developed this group and under P.E.A.C.E, PWC, where we're able to support mothers who are just struggling with different things. A lot of people don't realize that Black mothers go through a lot through pregnancy, and when it comes to the medical field, not feeling like their needs are heard when they express a concern in the whether they're about to deliver, when they're going for a checkup or anything like that. And so that group really does address some of the nuances of being a mother, being a Black mother. And so that is a therapy support group. We are going to be starting other groups that are going to be coming. So definitely we encourage people to follow us, check us out on Instagram and on our website. We'll have a grief group coming at some point this year. I know all of us have some type of group in the works that is coming, so we're definitely excited for those.
That's great. Is that going to be in person or online as well, or?
I know for me, definitely online, but I know they'll probably be doing some in person because I go back and forth between Georgia and here often.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Great. Is that where you grew up?
No, I grew up in New Jersey.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I'm a Jersey girl.
Did you all grow up in New Jersey, or?
Ooh, child, no.
Ew.
Nothing wrong with
She's a Cali girl.
I grew up in the Bay Area, Central. My family's in Stockton currently. So,
that's right. I saw that. Yeah. Same place as Faith up there, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Close by, at least.
I'm from Los Angeles, from San Fernando Valley specifically.
Okay, so it's a little bit of a mix.
Yeah.
Well, I would love for the next topics to sort of talk a little bit about, what does it mean to help your clients engage into the local community? Like, what resources do you typically use? How do you find them? How do you engage people into these communities? How do you advocate for your clients to engage in different other aspects of the community if they are isolating and they don't want to engage? So maybe we could start. I know we're going into a break in not too many minutes, but let's start the conversation at least. So from your point of view, or from PWC, how do you start that conversation with a client about how important it is to engage in other things than just the therapy?
Well, the cool thing about that is if they're in front of us, then that means there's already an interest. There's already a door that's opened. So it's not that we have to we do have instances where, we're going to Leimert Park where we're putting ourselves out there and letting people know that the services are available and that we are here. But if we already have you in an individual situation, that means you're already kind of open to some degree. So then we can easily start the conversation. But then at that point, it's, what resources to give. Because once again, you got to look like me if I'm going to step in there.
Yep.
So that's where we come in, where we have what do you call it on the website?
What do we call it?
The list of all the connections that we have.
Referral list?
Referral list.
All of that. Got it.
Thank you. Or we build a list of referrals of other providers that do different things. So we can, once again, going back to the village concept. So if I know that, someone is more on the spiritual side and they might want something like Reiki healing, that, I have someone in my back pocket where I know that we can connect them to that. And who's also African American. So we're building a community on the side of referrals, so that way we have someone to actually usher them to when they're open for and ready for that.
Yeah, it starts with us. Right? Like if we're not in the community as therapists doing our job, going to the children's museum, letting them know that we're here. If we're not, going to festivals, coming to sites like this, right? Platforms like this, then we see it as we're not abiding by our model, right? If PwC is not in the community, then we cannot connect our clients to the community.
Makes sense.
So we really do pride ourselves on really making ourselves visible as therapists. Sometimes I think we start to pigeonhole ourselves when you're in private practice. You're just in private practice, right? It's a very one-to-one experience. You're not really, you might make a referral, but you're not the one that's out there connecting to the referral, right? And we pride ourselves on not making blind referrals. We do not refer unless we know you, because we really need to know that you understand this concept of we're going to be a part of our client's treatment, right? So even though we're referring to you, let's say a psychiatrist, right? Just know that we expect to still be a part of our client's treatment. If our client is still seeing us for individual therapy or for couples therapy, we still want to be a part of that that client's treatment plan, right?
And it's delicate. You know, because once again, we're helping to remove a stigma.
Yes.
So we don't want to just be careless with that and just send you to anyone.
Exactly.
And then now they're back at where they started. Now they don't want to do any therapy at all.
Yeah. Because of the mistrust, right? Like Mo, you started to talk about some of the reasons why African American clients don't come to therapy. I think a lot of times what we forget to mention is the time it takes, right? So if I'm seeing, let's say Insight is seeing a family comes in with 2 teens who need support, and you tell that family who's in crisis, right, what they perceive as a crisis as, hey, this is going to take, I know this is really a lot of issues here, but this is going to take 12 months before we start to see. They're going to be like, okay, bye, right? They're going to see that as, which is true, right? We don't want to lie to our clients and say that this is going to be, sprinkle our little therapy dust and it's going to be over, right? So we do have to be realistic with clients, but also knowing, and when you are working with the African American community, we've been in crisis for so long. If you're going to tell us that it's going to take an additional amount of time, that is really what's going to, I think, deter them away from services. And so really we encourage those who are listening or who are trying to work with the African American community to really look at short-term therapy models. I know Mo can speak to that a little bit about SFT. Solution focused therapy.
Yeah.
And knowing that SFT is something that it can help reel the clients in, right? So you're giving them immediate tools to be able to use. And then after that relationship is built, after they trust you, then you can start to use more long-term therapy models that might require more work and more time. But that's just an idea. Right?
Giving them those tools, like this is what you can do that's tangible right now.
Yes.
Because it's almost like you got to make therapy works.
Yeah.
We're trying to sell it kind of like in those first few sessions. So if they're not leaving with something tangible that they can actually use, then you're going to lose them.
Interesting. I would love to talk more about this. Unfortunately, we have to go into a little quick break. But I will say, so what I hear you say, Kiki, is, everybody out there who is listening to this show, if you have something that you're focusing on the African American community and you feel it could be interesting to explore a little bit with PWC, then make sure you go to their website or give us a call and connect with them, because you guys are interested in meeting anybody out there, whether it's a school, whether it's a psychiatrist, whether it's a, I don't know, library, you name it. But anybody out there, nutritionist, good point. Anybody who works with your community and is engaging with the African American community, you guys would like to know about and create a relationship with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Like Voltron. Absolutely. Yes.
Perfect.
We might make you an Avenger, Frederik.
There we go. Everything happens on KHTS. You're listening to the Inside Teen Hour. And we'll jump into a short little break. Welcome back. You're listening to the Insight Teen Hour on KHTS 98.1 FM. And this is Frederik from Insight Treatment Programs here in our Santa Cruz Valley. It's an intensive outpatient programs for teens that are struggling with mental health and drug and alcohol issues. And today we're talking about teen mental health issues, but primarily we're focusing on how important it is to focus on sort of a community approach and be involved with your community and allow for clients to have more than one place to find support, but make sure you help them connect to other resources in your community. In the studio, I've got the Wellness Collective, and I got Kiki, Monifa, and Makeda. I am sorry. I just can't. This is almost ridiculous. Anyway, Makeda, let's start with you, because now I got your name right. Makeda, we were talking a little bit about how important it is to connect with the community, right? And you were mentioning that, hey, there is a lot of examples that you could talk about, ways that you guys have connected with your community and been out in your community. Can you give us some examples of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we first came together in 2019, we did hold a community event called Smoke and Mirrors, and it was created to be an opportunity to talk about the barriers, to pursuing mental health services in the Black community and kind of demystifying mental health. We accepted questions from attendees before the event so that we could address it on a panel, and also took questions during the event. And we had kind of a question and answer session, and everyone, people in the audience shared things that were barriers for them to pursuing mental health, and questions about people they love that they know are suffering and how to support them. And we also had different stations, and a timer so people could kind of get an example of what it would be like to be in a therapy group, different kind of tools that we provide, different resources that are available, different ways they can be empowered to understand their own mental health. So this was our first event, and this is something that we're very committed to doing, is just making access to understanding mental health and demystifying and, taking away the barriers accessible to the community. And they also offered food at the event that is, shown in studies to be good for our mental health, and just, really strive to create a good starting point, and hopefully allow others to kind of spread the word and, share resources at the event. So that was our first event that we held. And we also held an event during the kind of the height of the COVID pandemic and everything that was going on with George Floyd and the traumatic racial pain that was happening, or is still happening, obviously, in our communities. At the height of it, we offered an online event discussing trauma and racial trauma in our community, as well as the impact of COVID. So community events is something that's really important to us, and we are going to continue to offer community events in the future.
Yeah.
I think it's just very important to, again, remain accessible, to provide information and provide tools.
Yeah. One event that we recently just did, I think it was in maybe a couple months ago, there's a group in Leimert Park area in Los Angeles called Black Women Vend. And so every Sunday there are Black vendors that go out, and all of these, the vendors have some type of homemade product, handmade product. And so we were approached through someone in the community that they created a group for all of the Black female vendors. They came together, created a community for themselves to support each other while they are vending, make sure that safety is addressed. And so through that, they found us. They really wanted us to come to them and speak to them about how can they keep themselves safe within their own community, right, within the Black community while vending. Right. So as I'm a street vendor, how do I keep myself safe as a Black woman? And so in that event, we really did focus on the individual, right? So how can I personally keep myself safe? But then we also gave them tools on how, as this community of Black women, how they can keep each other safe, how they can create a safety code word. So as you're vending, if I'm vending and you're 10 yards away from me, if I feel unsafe, whether a customer comes by, what is our code word to say, hey, I need backup here, I need support here, right? And so we gave them those tools. And some of them, like I mentioned, started with mental health tools, how you start your day before you go vend, right? Are you starting your day in a rush by trying to get your stuff together and shoot out the door? Or are you starting with a meditation? Are you starting with the affirmation that I'm going to sell all my goods today, right? So I think those are some of the ways that we are trying to stay connected to our community and really support them, not just in the therapy office, but giving them practical tools that they can use in their day-to-day at work or at home.
Makes perfectly sense. Now, on that note, Faith, has there been any events sort of similar to that, or some events up in your community where you've had an opportunity, where you feel you've had an opportunity to sort of strengthen the relationship with the African American community in your area? Or
Yeah, actually, so we last year and the year before were a part of Juneteenth, so we had a booth there. And since I'm from Modesto, but I moved to the Bay for many years, people didn't know to come back. So they're like, oh, look at you all grown up, and what's this about? So that was really cool. And like the ladies are saying, having a Black woman not only be the leadership at a clinical environment, but to be encouraging this work and saying, like, no, I'm the face, I'm here, I'm going to be with you during this process, made a lot more people feel comfortable. So we had some people reach out to us from that event, actually, and so we held a nice little street fair type of thing at Insight because we have a huge parking lot. So lots of women vendors came, just as you guys are talking about, and selling, candles and baked goods and whatever. So they were in that environment, coming all the way from Fresno, even from the Bay Area to Modesto, to sell their goods, but also to spend time with each other and just let each other know they were there. And then the secondary effect was that, we're a treatment facility and letting them know what we do. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. I think there's definitely a need for that out here, Faith. So if you ever want to bring your talents down south, we would love to support Insight with helping with something like that, because I do think that there's our community is craving for it, especially as all of us are going through. I think us as Black women, if we just kind of bring it into Black women, sometimes we suffer in silence, right? Because we don't know that we can reach out and that someone might be also feeling maybe same or dissimilar from us, right? And that there's still camaraderie, there's still some type of unity, even if we feel differently, right? That I can still have empathy for you, even if I don't know your exact pain or your exact trauma, right? And so I think that, especially out here, I know in different areas, COVID has hit many different states, many different cities differently. But I think for us in LA community, we definitely crave that unity these days.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. On that note, so obviously, I'm curious from your perspective. Why do you think that there is maybe a big barrier towards going out and finding support if your family is struggling? Why do you think that the African American community, maybe compared to other communities or other cultures, have sort of that idea of, hey, let's not go to a therapist as soon as there are problems, let's try and resolve it in-house, or let's not talk about it, or whatever you guys feel it might be. I would love to hear your perspective of what you feel is going on in your community and why you feel that there is a barrier or a hesitation to seek support from therapists or psychiatrists or intensive outpatient programs.
Well, as you're asking, I'm like, wow, that's such a multi-layered answer, because there's so many moving parts to that. One of the first things that pops in my head is just distrust. Distrust as a medical system as a whole. Even if you think about the manual that we use as therapists, the diagnostics, DSM, but in layman's terms, diagnostic statistical manual. Yes. And using that, it's all written by white men. So how am I going to apply that to African Americans, especially women, and then African American women? Like, it just doesn't, it's already not written for us in the first place. Yeah. And then that is the Bible that we're using when we're applying, doing therapy for others. So there's already just a distrust kind of on every level. Even with doctors, Kiki had mentioned, having a baby. When I was pregnant, I was ridiculously stressed about going to the hospital. And what is that going to look like? Can I advocate for myself? Can I make sure that I know exactly what I want? So therefore, because I don't know what they're going to do. And that is like a common everyday thing that as African Americans that we are dealing with on a daily basis. So that is, I guess, the overarching umbrella. And because of that, we get used to, doing things in-house, because you can't trust that you can call on the authorities and that they're going to be helpful to you. So, you learn how to be resourceful. You learn how to do things in home because you can trust in home. And if you say something, especially if we're going back in the day, even now today also, saying something to someone that's supposed to help you could be life or death. That could turn on you real quickly. And then it's like, well, why did you say anything in the first place? You should have just dealt with this in home. So that leads to why it's so important to have someone that looks like you doing the treatment, because now there's at least a base level of trust. Like, I know I can, trust this person that they're going to, not turn on me.
Interesting, because I'm just thinking, the African American community are usually very good at expressing themselves, right?
Yeah.
There's a culture of expression, you're singing, dancing, whatever it is. So, and I'm thinking, church, for instance, a lot of stuff goes on in church, right? You're talking a lot in church, you're helping each other, it's sort of a knit community.
Yeah.
But again, it's probably because, hey, the church is considered as being family. It's considered as being a community that understands you, that knows you, not necessarily the therapy environment or the intensive outpatient program or whatever you're going into, right?
Yeah. The key is what you just said is if we're singing, we're dancing, that's amongst us.
Exactly.
Right? That's amongst people that look like me, who understand me, who appreciate, right? There's an appreciation, and also there's a protection layer too.
Yeah.
Like Mo just mentioned, if I'm going to, if I confided in a social worker and they don't understand that the way that I may talk to my child, right, it might be different than, let's say that this, the social worker was from a different background, they might not understand that within this culture, this is understood in my culture. They go and make a report, they call CPS, now that child's being taken away. That's a break, that's a lack of protection, right, a break of trust there. And so, yes, we are, I think, as a culture, we're very expressive. We have different ways of expressing ourselves. Like Mo will send me different things of how we've kind of different Instagram things where we've shared, and we'll always just say, oh gosh, I love us, right? Because we just have so many different ways of expressing ourselves. But I think it's who you're expressing yourself to, that is what makes the difference in our community.
Right.
Do you feel that
experience of being in spaces where we're gaslit and, not honoring or respecting the experience of Black people, in this country and the different traumas that we endure on different levels. So there's, kind of not enough spaces where we don't have to explain or, kind of fight to be understood or valued, and, have concern over your experience being validated. I think that's a major barrier, feeling that you're going to have to explain and validate feelings and, things that we go through and being in settings that are not created for us and not with the worldview of the Black experience. So, I think that's just a major factor of the distrust, of the disconnect, and of the not feeling safe to express, as my colleagues mentioned.
And do you feel, just because we're working with teens all the time, right, so my perspective is usually the teens, do you feel that is also the reason, or that's also a hesitation for the teens, or do you feel that comes more from the parents before they will potentially start seeking therapists, start seeking help for their teen or for their family? Is it both generations? Or maybe I should say it that way.
Yeah, I think sometimes, and I think as for PwC, we look at it from a very systems approach, right? So we're looking at the entire system and how the whole system is catering to some of these behaviors that you might be seeing with the teen, right? So if a teen is coming in and they have, they're very limited in their verbal expression, then I'm going to want to immediately work with the family to understand how are they expressing their needs, right, when they come up. Because I know a lot of times, we have different figures within our families. So you have, you might have the big mama figure, right, who's taking care of everyone. You might have the father who's taking care of other things. And yes, even though we're expressive, again, it's who you're expressing to, right? So within the Black culture, there's a saying that a child stays in a child's place, right? And so that is a way that us as ex-Black parents are protecting children from things that are not made for children, right? But when you're doing that, there's also a child is not able to see or to be able to understand, well, because I was always stayed in a child's place, right? And those things were kept from me. I don't know how to express anger. I don't know how to express sorrow or embarrassment, or I don't have the tools for that because mom and dad, grandma, auntie, whoever was my caretaker, they kept that very close to them, right? They internalized that and they found ways to deal with it individually. So I do think, as you're working with teens, it is important to make sure that you understand all the different figures within that family system in order to understand how that teen may or may not be expressing themselves.
Interesting.
And in addition to that, when you were talking about the family system, and looking at how the parents are expressing themselves. Lots of times in the African American community, we just push through, you know, like no matter what, because you have to. You know, and that goes all the way back to slavery times. Like, you better push through, or once again, it's life or death right there. So that frame of thinking carries on throughout generations. So then when you're talking about looking at teens, it's like they're learning that same also. So, you know, African Americans are, you know, we may not necessarily look at physical ailments or necessarily even pay that close attention to it. Same thing happened with emotional stuff. Like, if I'm pushing through a physical ailment, imagine I'm gonna treat my emotional stuff.
The stuff we can't see.
Exactly, right? Stuff you can't see. Like, that's not important. What's important is that you get up and go to work and do what you need to do, because food needs to get on the table. So that's why when you first asked, I was like, oh, there's so many moving parts to a question like that, because that's a whole nother discussion.
Of course.
I need a diagram with like markers connecting to this and like that, a whole tree branch.
But I think why it's so interesting before we go into the break, but why it's so interesting to talk about these things is because if we really want to change these, if we want to change the paradigm, if we really want to change and reduce the stigma to mental health for our communities, regardless of which community you're from, I think it's really important to understand what is it that's getting in our way, right? So we can address those specific things, so we can lower the barriers or increase the acceptance of mental health, right? And really talk to our communities about some of those barriers and why it's affecting our teens or why it's affecting our families in a negative way. So if we don't know what it is, if we don't talk about what it really is, then it's hard to change it, right? So, but I know we need to go into a short little break here, and then we'll be back again. So you're listening to KHTS 98.1 FM, and this is the Inside Teen Hour. Good afternoon, and welcome back to the Inside Teen Hour. So today we're talking about the African American community. We're talking about, you know, stigmas surrounding mental health and to find support outside of the home or church, or, you know, sort of the idea of how important it is for us to talk about, you know, that these kind of things and therapy can really help and support a family. So we were talking a little bit about what the stigmas were, what was it about, so that we could try and help lower it. So we talked about the idea of being maybe fearful, or the trust in the system, the trust in the field was maybe not great. To say it that way. And is there anything else that you guys feel you want to mention that sort of typically you see as an issue in the families, or is an issue in the culture maybe, or prohibits, let's do it that way. It's not an issue, but that prohibits families to seek mental health treatment?
Yeah, I think there is that aspect of, you know, bringing in the idea of the PWC approach because we are primarily taught how to deal with things in-house, like Mo mentioned. We're actually trying to reverse that, right? By saying that, yes, there are things that you're going to be able to handle. There is an individual aspect of this work, right? Like, you have to be able to want to do the work as an individual, but we're trying to reverse that ideology that I have to pull myself up by my own bootstraps, right? We're trying to erase that to say, actually, you don't have to suffer alone. You don't have to do this by yourself. You can reach out to, you can have a therapist and a psychiatrist and a nutritionist and let's say your pastor. That can all be a part of your wellness team, right? And so that is our approach that we're trying to create for our clients, is understanding that it is totally fine. We have something on our website that kind of mentions how, like, Beyonce does not do a show by herself, right? She's not the engineer, she's not the stylist, she's not her nutritionist. She has a whole team behind her that creates this production of a show, right? And so we're taking that idea, we're applying that to specifically to private practice, because private practice is typically a one-on-one experience. We're trying to help our clients understand that the same way that you see Beyonce do her thing is the same way that we can do in therapy. Great.
Well, so what I also hear you say is we need a lot more African American and Black therapists out there.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
we definitely need to encourage everybody out there to, hey, if you're not already in school to become a therapist, then go ahead, get it done, right? But I know time is flying and the show is ending up in a few minutes, but if somebody out there is listening and they're interested and want to get in touch with you, how can they reach PWC? Can you tell us a little bit about
So
that?
Instagram at PWC Los Angeles, PWCLA.com is our website. And you can contact either of us, Kiki Robinson, I'm Monifa Ellis. I also have my own private intimate answers. You can contact me through there to get to PWC also. And Maki, I don't know if you want to give yours.
Yeah, Makeda Abraham, you can find a link to connect with me on our website, as well as on our social media, PWC Los Angeles.
Great. Thank you very much for coming in today. I really appreciate it. Great to have a conversation with you all. And
Yes.
have a nice
for
day.
having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.